Have you been wanting to turn your side hustle into your only hustle, or address that nagging feeling that you have when you're waiting at your real job, knowing that you've got a destiny that is better than where you are right now? Or maybe you have an online brand and you know that it is time to actually get a real business set up. Well, if you answered yes to any of those questions, this is the CPTV episode for you. Because in this episode, I'm going to walk you through the 6 basic steps to set up your infrastructure in your business, in your mind, on paper, and at the bank, so that you can start making money today. Let's get to work.
You an entrepreneur, I got what you need.
Giving you the blueprints that impact growth in your business and life.
I'm Cheryl, and welcome to the beginning. So, step 1 in actually setting up the basic infrastructure of your business is always kind of tricky, but it really is the most critical step in the entire process. And that is getting your mind right. Now, I don't mean getting your mind right like meditation, getting your mind right. I mean, it's critical for you to really answer a few questions for yourself as you begin to kind of wrap your mind around what type of business, what structure of business, who you want to focus on, and really why you're doing this. It's really important because I've started several 6-figure, 7-figure businesses in my career, and there was never a time in that process where I didn't have to wrap my mind around several things at various times as I was building, growing, and structuring my organizations. So, and don't worry, I'm going to dive really deep into this particular topic in a whole nother video. We'll put the card up here, and we will also link that video down below in the description box, because I think it's really important for you to understand that this really is going to be a series. I'm going to go over with you those 6 steps today, but I'm also going to dive really deep in them in other videos throughout this series, because I think it's important if you're at a point where you're really ready to set up that business, that you are able to do it the right way and get that basic infrastructure in place so that you can begin to focus on scaling. So when I talk about getting your mind right, you've got to answer yourself a couple of questions. First, why are you doing it, right? It's really important for you to determine why you're doing this business. And I don't mean the what you're going to do, and I don't mean the how you're going to do it. I mean why. What is your biggest purpose? What is your belief? What impact are you planning on having in your business? Because that why is going to really drive what your 30-second commercial looks like, what your statement looks like when people ask you why you have a business, and it's going to drive your marketing and your sales later on in the future. So knowing why is really important. I also want you to answer who. Who are you going to be focusing on? Who is your customer avatar? Now, I have worked with a lot of business owners in my careers, and one of the hardest parts is to figure out who. Everybody wants the who to be out here and be this huge thing, right? But really, you got to kind of pare it down so that you know exactly who you're focusing on. Sometimes I have people say, well, I want to do beauty, so I want to focus on women. But there's lots of types of women out there. Are you talking about women executives? Are you talking about women in college? Are you talking about, single moms? Are you talking about stay-at-home moms? What kind of women are you really going to focus on in this product? Because that customer avatar guides your pricing, it guides your marketing, it guides your messaging, and that really is based off of that why. So you got to talk about why, you got to figure that out, you got to figure out who very specifically, and you also have to figure out where do you want to go. That's really the third question. Where do you want to go personally with this business and into the future? Everything that you do in setting up your business is really going to be based off of what you do into the future. That future, that growth has to be in that mindset for you, right? So when I say, where do you want to go personally? Do you want to eventually grow this business to sell it to someone else? Well, if you are going to grow it to sell it to someone else, then the structure and the processes that you actually put in place for the infrastructure of your business, the types of products that you choose to sell, that all pertains to you wanting to sell it into the future. Or maybe you're creating a business that you want to leave as a legacy, for your children. And that affects how you're going to structure your business as well. I mean, so you really have to know. Maybe you want to grow a business that becomes your lifestyle business that'll travel with you, that you can take when you're lying on the beach later on in retirement. So all of those things, where you want to go with it personally, financially, and ultimately your end goal and your end result for your business is also a huge question as you're beginning to get your mind wrapped around the type of business that you want to have have and what you want to do. Also, what is your risk tolerance? That is a huge question. And I think that that's kind of the piece that stems the most fear in everybody. When can I start this business? How much money do I need before I can do it full time? How long can I withstand, taking a step back financially or in my income in order to really focus on the business? Because even if this is your side hustle and you're slowly beginning to grow it and you still got kind of your main job and your main gig going on, or maybe you just started this online presence or this online brand, and you're trying to figure out when you'll be able to make the real true transition to focus on this dream of yours, your risk tolerance is very important. Are you at a point where you have a lump sum amount of money saved up where for the next 6 months, I can focus on this business and really drive growing it? Are you at a point where you're going to have to maintain your main gig and kind of do this on the side, but really focusing on an end goal and an end date? So what's your risk tolerance is very important. And other part of what is your skill set, right? A lot of people want to start businesses based off of something that they like, right? Or something that they enjoy. But your skill set will always also drive what your business should be based around, because that skill set is really going to enable you to deliver a good quality product or service on the back end. So you also have to know your what. Like, what are you good at? What's your genius zone? What are you an expert in? What are you going to be able to contribute that no one else can contribute in the world? And think about that. Begin to jot those things down and write them down. I also want you to think about, how will you get there? Do you have a game plan? Do you have kind of a strategy planned out? Do you have a date in mind of when you're going to launch? Or are you going to say, I'm going to spend the next 90 days kind of getting it all set up and structured, and then I'm going to start attending networking events and telling my friends and family about what I'm doing. Maybe I'll get some referrals for customers. So your kind of short-term game plan over the next 6 months is really important. So how will you ultimately get to the point where you can start making money with this business? And then the last question that I really want you to think about is, can you do it? Or should I say, will you do it? Not can. And there is a very big difference, because, of course you can do it. Of course, as long as you are breathing, you can do it. You can drive your dream. You can achieve what you want to achieve. The difference is, will you actually take the necessary action steps to get it done? Will you do it on purpose? Will you make the decision? Will you put this foundation that I'm going to go over with you today in place so that you can actually move forward? So will you do it? Do you have the patience to understand that in the first few years while you're building your business, you may not be at a point where you've got hundreds of thousands of dollars coming in, right? Do you have the tenacity and the drive to really withstand being an entrepreneur? Do you have the determination that you really ultimately need? And do you have that support system in place from your friends, from your family, from your spouse or your significant other, and even from your children? Are they going to be in a position to really endorse, help, and understand when you're working late nights, when you're doing your main gig and you're trying out this side gig? Will you have the opportunity to have the support that you need? So that's step one to getting your mind right. And again, I'm going to dive really in depth and help you work through it in that other video. So check it out in the description below. But let's move on to step number 2. All right, so step 2, picking a business name. After you've gotten your mind right, the next step is, all right, I know my why, I know my who, I know my what, I know my will. At this point, it's time for me to pick a really good business name. And I get this a lot. I get a ton of questions from coaching clients, from HR clients. It doesn't matter. Everybody wants to know what the name of their business should be. And people make decisions about the name of their business for various reasons. But right now, I want to talk to you a little bit about, what you should really take into consideration. And I'm going to dive really deep into this particular topic in a different video that's a part of this series as well. The link obviously will be up here in the cards and also down below in the description box. But picking a name is really based around a couple of things. And here's my tips. Number 1, don't pick a name that will limit your ability to grow into different avenues, different services, and different products into the future. I have been there. I have done that. And it can be really, really expensive to try to rebrand things and to figure out a whole new name. So I've learned over the course of having several businesses that the name is really important, but you don't want it to be too limiting, right? So when you're thinking about a name, don't specifically say, if you have an air conditioning company, right? You don't want to say, such and such air conditioning company, because later on you might want to go into furnaces. You might want to go into, remodeling or construction, and everybody will automatically think that all you do is air conditioning. So don't limit yourself in the name choice. Also, you want to make sure that the name does give some indication about what you do. It's important because oftentimes, especially with today's marketing, your name might be the only thing that people really see. So while you don't want to limit yourself, you also want to give some type of indication of exactly what your focus is and what your niche is, because then people who find you can look at your name and say, this might be a great fit for me. Let me do a little bit more digging into who this company is. You also want your name to have staying power and to have impact in people's minds, meaning when you walk away, you want them to remember what your business is. We have a company actually called Big HR, and that company, Big HR, I get so much feedback on the name Big HR because Big HR is something that sticks with people all the time. So sometimes people will know, hey, this is a company that offers big HR services, or, big is always really cool. And the way that we have been able to take that acronym and put it into the logo has a lot of impact and staying power. So it's really important that you consider that when you pick your name as well. Also, and this is a very key point, so make a note. Don't make it too long or some kind of weird, crazy spelling, okay? I've had a client whose name was Synergy Services, for instance, Synergy Delivery Services, I believe it was, and they spelled synergy in some weird way, not the way that synergy is actually supposed to be spelled. So even though they said the name of my business is Synergy Delivery Services, when people went out to look for them, they were spelling it the normal way. They were spelling it the way that synergy is supposed to be sold and found, so they were never able to actually locate them by going to Google or by doing a search on their phone, because they had synergy spelled in some weird way. So don't make it too long, because your domain name is going to be ridiculously long on the back end, but also don't make it all kind of crazy, weird spelling. If you've got a word that everybody knows is spelled a certain way, use that spelling. That's also a tip. Now, I want you to really focus on brainstorming at least 20 different name options. I want you to write all 20 of those name options down, because there's a whole different step that I'm getting ready to talk to you about when you're picking your name that's important, but you got to have lots of options in order to make it through this next step. So brainstorm, taking into consideration a lot of those things that I just talked to you about, but write down 20 different options. Maybe it's different configurations of the same name, and maybe it's different things that you're thinking about. Ask people. When I was naming my last company, Big HR, I asked my kids. My son actually was instrumental in coming up with that name. So it's important for you to write them down on paper so you can see what they look like and begin to envision kind of what that brand is supposed to look like as well. So you also want to make sure that you do your research. It is really important, and that's why you want to have that whole list of names, because as you begin to do your research and check for availability, then some things may not be available, and that means you don't want to move forward with that name. When I say do your research, I mean you want to check availability on all social media platforms, and you want to check for availability in your state where you're going to it, or with the organization that you're going to actually register the business name with. So I have a great resource called namecheck.com that I love, and you can plug in all 20 of those names that you just listed out, and it will actually show you on every social media platform if it's available. It will also show you if the domain is available, the .com, the .net, the .biz, the .info, but if the .com isn't available, don't go with that name, because that's really the most popular extension on the end of your domain. But it'll tell you if the IG, name is available, if the Facebook name is available. That is an amazing resource and tool. And then once you find out that it's available on all of those things, then you're going to also want to go out to your state and check the availability there. So don't worry though, I have a whole separate video where I dive really deep into exactly how to do that. And I will walk you through how to go to namecheck.com, how to enter in the information, and how to interpret the results that you get. And then I'll also show you how to check out on your state website or on your organization website where you have to register, how to check for your name availability. The link to that video is going to be below in the description box, and we'll also put it up here in the cards. So now it is time to talk about that legit critical piece, which is step number 3. All right, you got to choose a business type and it is time to make it real. That means you got to get it registered. Now, the business type is always a tricky part. It's always something that my clients are like, I don't know what to choose. I don't know why, because there's LLC, there's sole proprietorship, there's S Corp, there's C Corp, there's partnership, there's all these different options out there, and you really do have to figure out what type of business you actually want to set. Now, I know a lot of people automatically pick LLC, and that could be okay, but it could also not be okay, because the choice that you make has very serious implications from a liability perspective and from a tax perspective. And ultimately, when your business starts making money, especially when you get into the 6 and 7 figure area of making money, the tax liability is critical for you, because it can get pretty stressful. Trust me, I know, when it comes to paying some taxes because you didn't really necessarily pick the right business structure. And sometimes people ask me, do I really need to have a structure? Do I need to have an LLC or a business set up? The answer is yes. If you want to make money with your business, then you need to actually have a business. And this is one of those key steps in that process. So it's time to choose a type, and it's time to get it registered. But guess what? I am going to hook you up in this area. Down below in the description box, there is a video that I want you to watch where I'm actually going to interview and give you some inside scoop from an accountant and a team of attorneys to walk you through all the different business types and structures, what you should choose, what the tax liabilities are, to really give you a good idea of what that choice should be, because it is important and it is going to kind of carry you through. But once you do that, you're going to have that piece of paper that I've gotten and I've received, and that feeling that you get when you get that certificate from the state or from your overarching organization in your country. When you get that certificate and you see I'm legitimately a business owner at this point, there is nothing like that feeling. So how are we doing so far, right? Lots of information. And if you're rushing to take notes, I want you to not worry about it, because down below, I am going to give you a cheat sheet. It's going to be a worksheet to help you work through all 6 of these steps for you to be able to take notes. And it's going to be kind of my gift to you. So in the description box below, when we're all done, go ahead and download this checklist. It's going to be a little bit of homework for you, but it's really going to help you put all of the stuff that I'm going over with you today in order, in for you to consider, and also give you some space to work through some of these details. So don't worry about it. It's down there for you. And I want you to make sure that if you need to, you can share the information with your friends. So step 3, we're done. Let's move on to step 4. Step 4 is about the money. Money, 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 money. Money. Oh, sorry. Anyway, yes, you got to set up your financials. I'm smiling because this is a question that I get all the time from people. Do I have to have a business bank account? Can't everything just go into my personal bank account? Can't all my money just come to me? And as I need to spend money on my business, I can just spend money on my business? No, you can't do that. You are opening yourself up to a ridiculous amount of personal tax liability if you do that. But ultimately, you can't make decisions about your business into the future if you can't track where the money is coming from and where the money is going to. So the 4th step is setting up your financials. You got to get a tax ID number, and you don't want any personal tax liability. You want it to all track to that tax ID number. That's kind of like the social security number for your business. You don't want that on your social security number. You want it on your business's social security number, right? You also need to choose a bank that you're going to manage all of your stuff through. And usually I make very specific recommendations on what type of bank that you should choose. And I won't get into that today because, of course, there's another video for you to access down below in the links that I'm going to dive really deep into setting up the actual financials. I'm going to walk you through how to link everything, what software to choose, how to put it all together, and how to get everything to sync. So don't worry about that. But you want to make sure that you choose a bank. You also want to make sure that you set up your business banking, right? So you got to start with some money, by the way. You do have to start with something. Anytime you open up a bank account, you at least need $25 or $50 or $100, depending upon the bank that you are. And you want to get in the habit now of putting money into that bank account. And I've got some great tips for you in that same video linked below. actually do that. You also want to get a debit card. Once you open up that bank account, get your debit card, and that is what you are going to use to spend money based upon your business, and it's how you're going to track it. So people say, I don't want a business bank account because I'm not good at keeping track of receipts and all that paper. If you have a business bank account and you have a debit card, you don't need to keep track of the receipts because your bank statement is your receipts, and it will track whenever you swipe, whatever you spend it on, it'll automatically sync to that financial software that I'm going to walk you through, and it will keep track for you. So you don't have to worry about receipts. And I keep mentioning it, but you're going to want to get some financial management software. So there is going to be a cost or an expense to that. I have used several in my career, and I tell you that there are a ton of options out there for every single budget, ranging from free financial software all the way up to $50 plus a month. But there's so many in between, and I really do have some great suggestions on my favorite. I've tried them all, and the one that really allows you to scale and grow into your business, we're going to get into in that video. So you got to connect your financial software to your bank. You have to reconcile on a monthly basis at a minimum, because if you're ever going to get into scaling your business, a lot of your decisions need to be managed based upon the numbers. And we'll walk you through how to manage by the numbers, because your profit and losses, your gross profit margins, your net profit margins matter. So that's really step 4, setting up your financials. And guess what? Once you've gotten to step 4, we are almost to the last 2 steps on what you need to do to set up your legit business. So let's move on to step number 5. Step 5, setting up your communication systems. Why is that important? Because if you can't talk to nobody, you can't make no money, right? And when I talk about communication systems, I mean your domain name, your phone system, and your email accounts. And I know some of you out there may already have these, your business name at gmail.com thing, or these Google Voice accounts. Come on, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Asher. I would like to talk to you about who Asher is and what it means when you see Asher. Asher syndrome, as defined by the Urban Dictionary, means the distinct inability to get your shit together. So, we have it, right? Get your shit together. When you see Asher, no more of them Gmail accounts or them Google Voice accounts. Why? They're not professional. And when you want to sell things that are actually worth some real money, nobody's going to want to do business with you if they are emailing you at abccompany@gmail.com, or every time they try to call you and talk to your customer service team, it says, you have reached a free Google Voice account of so-and-so, right? So you got to set up real communications that a real business would have. Imagine how you would feel if you were emailing someone at gmail.com. And don't worry, it's not hard. It's not crazy expensive. You also want to make sure that you are setting it up now for scalability and for growth. And that is a critical theme through all 6 of these steps. If you don't prepare your business, again, from step 1 on getting your mind right and what you see into the future, you are going to waste a lot of money and a lot of time, and most importantly, a lot of opportunities trying to figure it out later. So get your communication system set up. It's not that expensive. And of course, I am going to hook you up again. I got a video down below that I'm going to walk you through exactly what I recommend for so cheap on how you'll be able to set up as many email accounts as you want to at yourdomainname.com, and an actual phone system that has extensions, that has different departments, and it will cost you a fraction of what you're thinking it's going to cost you. So we've talked about the communication system. You guys have met Asher. Let's go on to the final step in setting up the structure of your business. It's time for step 6. But before we get into step 6, I need you guys to do me a favor. If you like what's going on, if you feel good about what I'm talking to you about, do me a favor. Subscribe right now. Hit that bell so you'll be notified whenever a CP TV episode airs. And make sure you like this video and share it with your friends who also needs this information. Because one thing about entrepreneurship is that when we work together, we get much further. So be sure to subscribe. So let's talk about step number 6. And the last thing that you do, which is sometimes what most people do in the very beginning and it's their first thing, but trust me, you want to do this after you do everything else. And the reason is step number 6 is establishing your brand. And that's important, right? That includes your personal brand colors, your font, the vibe, the feel, your business cards, any kind of print materials that you want to ultimately use, any kind of video materials, whatever it is. Now it's time for you to pick your brand. And the reason why you want to do this last is because it really is based off of all the other steps, right? You get your mind right, you figure out who your target customer is, you figure out why you're doing this, the type of business that you want. Well, that affects your vibe, your colors, who you're targeting, your customer avatar affects all of those things. So that's why you want to do this after that. You also got to set up, your communication system and your name, and you got to get everything registered. So you can't put on a business card an email address that you don't have yet, right? You can't put on a marketing brochure a website that you don't have yet, or because you don't have a name. So that's why branding is step number 6, but it is so important. It is so critical, and it should really be the last step. So it includes all of that stuff. And if you're trying to figure out what your brand is, I recommend that you start with taking a brand identity quiz. My favorite is at bigbrandsystem.com. The link will be down below for you. And don't worry, of course, I have a video that's coming to you guys soon that will walk you through all of this stuff. And the link will be in the description box below for that particular site for you to actually take the brand and personality quiz. It will actually give you some insight into what your brand should be and give you an idea of some colors that kind of impact a series of questions that you answer. And then you'll have an idea of your vibe, and you'll be able to start picking your colors, your fonts, your identity all together as a business, and what materials you want, because building your website, all of that stuff is going to be based off of that. So I have a question for you. What step are you currently in as you set up your business? And what's your plan to get to work? It's really important, and inquiring minds want to know. So is there anything that's holding you back from moving forward with any of these steps? Let me know in the comments below, and maybe I can give you some insight and some direct advice in those comments. So there you have it, the 6 steps to getting your new business set up for success and up and running. Yay! You are mostly there. Don't forget to check out all the detailed videos that I mentioned today. They are going to be down below in the description box for you to click right on and start diving deep into all of these steps. And again, do me a favor. If you enjoyed this episode of CPTV, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell. We will be putting out episodes every Tuesday and every Friday to help you get the blueprints that you need to grow your life and your business. Make sure that you like this video, so give us a thumbs up, smash that for me, and also share this with your friends or with colleagues or with family that you know are also thinking about becoming entrepreneurs and just don't know where to begin. I have really enjoyed my time with you today and am so looking forward to seeing you again on the next episode of CPTV. Bye, love.